the Toronto Raptors are a team that is always fun to talk about because we always get a bunch of engagement and interactions from Raptors fans. You guys are amazing. We love you all. And Toronto, they're a passionate fan base, die hard.
It's a country.
It's a city.
No, I mean like the fan base is like a country. It's a whole country. Thank you.
I know what you mean.
Outside
I mean, it's the only team in the country, but I don't think that – I'm not sure about this. I could be wrong, but I don't think that many cities outside of the main ones in Canada really support basketball.
It's when I be reading the comments. They like, bro, do Toronto Clips. The country is behind them. Like, that's what they say. I'm like, all right, well, I guess the whole country watches Toronto.
Toronto's a gigantic fan base, and 2019 they won a championship with Kawhi Leonard. Very next year after that, they were the third seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yep. Lost in the second round. Yep,
they lost in the second round, but went to 7 with Boston. And now this past season, we thought they were going to be a playoff lock, but COVID, not playing at home, really messed them up. We know this team is going to play hard every single night. But with the loss of Kawhi, with losing Ibaka over the years, losing Lowry now, what is this team now with Fred, Goran Dragic, OG Anunoby, Kem Birch, Siakam? They drafted Scotty Barnes, who we are high on this show, and Chris Boucher and Precious off the bench. What are the Raptors going to be this season? Are they going to be a playoff team? Are they going to dwell just below 500? I mean, where is this team going to be?
Well, with Pascal missing a couple games, maybe a month or two, he's out with a torn labrum. It was 5 months in June, so he'll probably be back November, December. So
he's going to miss a month of the season.
Yeah, so give or take, we're probably going to see a lot of Scotty Barnes in that starting lineup. I think that's good for the development process. I think, getting him was great for them, getting a guy who is a jack of all trades, who can play 1 through 5, who can defend at a high level, and who still has ways to go, but he's a young player who can improve. I think this team can be a play-in team, given how they look when Pascal comes back. But this team has Fred VanVleet. This team has a good team. Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr. Then you got the only thing that lacks for me is their size and their strength at the center position. But I think they have 7-8 guys. You still have Dragic, you still have Scotty, you have Gary Trent Jr., Malachi Flynn. He's a solid backup point guard. So you still have players that can really make an impact. Kem Birch, he kind of got a contract because he was playing really good last year for them.
He's a good center.
Yeah, so this is a team that has a lot of good players. And I think even if they don't make the play-in, that's another lottery pick you bring into an already established culture, to guys who are already locked up for a long term. And a team who has a lot of pieces, they just need one of their stars to pop or one of their rookies to pop. And I think that's huge for them. But ceiling for me would be a play-in team, floor, a lottery. I think this team is still really good. Going back home is definitely going to help them be a little bit better. Playing in Florida was tough for them. They didn't have any home games, so that was a rough set. And then traveling also. I think playing in Toronto, that fan base is back, is going to be live for them. And, of course, they have players that have played with each other for a long time. And I think, they're just expecting guys like OG and Nubi to take that MIP leap. They're expecting for guys like Scotty to show them something in their rookie year. Malachi Flynn to just improve on that next year. Precious Achiuwa, I didn't even mention him, a guy who coming from Miami who has that Miami culture still in his brain, that defensive mindset. He come in and he make that improvement. But all in all, this is a good team. I like this team. Ceiling, play-in, floor, lottery.
Now, as much as I like the Scotty Barnes pick, after losing Kyle Lowry, I would have expected them to go Jalen Suggs. You lose your franchise point guard. It would fill the hole immediately. You don't even have to think about it. You draft Jalen Suggs. You bring in that guy. You bring in Scotty. Obviously, now they're catering to the defense. They are now a defensive. That's their identity. They're a defensive team. They have one of the better defenses in the league, which is why I do think that their ceiling is around a 7th, 8th seed, because defense does win games. We saw it from the Knicks last year. It's possible that with this roster, given that the skill set of these players and their offensive abilities, they could be around a 7th, 8th seed. I think you bring in Scotty. Obviously, you're going to lose that offense this season. Excuse me. Got my chest is bubbling up. But you bring in Scotty, obviously, you're going to lose that offense. But defensively, his ability to exchange 1 through 5, I'm not too sure about the 5, but I guess given the fact that Pascal is more suited at the 4 and Scotty's ability, I guess you could play Scotty as that small ball 5. But personally, I think he'll be better suited as that point forward. And I think that eventually he'll get to the point where he's facilitating the offense, especially the fact that they don't have a true point guard right now. I think Federico is going to take a decent leap this year, points-wise at least, because he's going to have more responsibility on his back. Pascal Siakam has been pretty solid and pretty consistent for them over these past few years, but if I'm being honest, his offensive game kind of worries me to a degree. It's a little bit predictable. It got to a point where Jaylen Brown was taking Pascal one-on-one and was not worried at all, kind of put him on an island and took Siakam out the game. It was his moves were getting basically getting you in the post, he'd spin off, and that was really it. Jaylen Brown was on it. So that's why I do expect guys like Federico to take a leap. I expect OG Anunoby to take more responsibility. Now that Lowry's gone, these guys are going to be asked to do a whole lot more than they were originally asked to do. And I think that Gary Trent, OG, Federico, these guys are all able to do so. But I don't know if they're going to be able to do it at a super high level where they could be that 2 seed that they once were. I don't think anyone's expecting them to be that. But I think ceiling-wise, they could be a play-in team for sure. Floor, though, that's where I kind of have my difficulty because offensively, there are question marks. And there are teams that are just more talented than they are offensively. So I would say my floor for them is around the 12, 13, like he mentioned, a lottery, but I don't think it's going to be too far off. They didn't have any home games, and they were a 12 seed last year. I do expect that to play a role in this season. They're going to win more games. They have one of the stronger home court advantages. They have one of the better coaches in the East as well in Nick Nurse. He is a solid coach, and he's going to be crucial in Scotty Barnes' development. And I think that will 100% benefit Scotty Barnes in terms of his ability to transform into that point forward. So I think ultimately, I do believe that they will be in the play-in, but it's a possibility that they drop out in our lottery.
Pascal Siakam has one of the more uglier games in the NBA.
That's a fact.
He's clumsy. He's very loose,
goofy,
but it's effective, and he's a phenomenal player. And he's an all-star caliber player. Losing Siakam for the month changes things for me. Losing him for the month, that's a big-time loss. I do think it gives the Raptors a chance to scout Barnes and figure out, hey, we might have something here sooner rather than later. Now Siakam becomes more expendable. And let's fit around Scotty because I think Siakam and Scotty, their games are just not going to mesh well. They both need to be at that 4 spot. I think either one at the small ball 5. Barnes can do it. I just think he's too young right now, and even though he has an NBA body, still has to get a little bit stronger to really guard 5s in the NBA.
For sure.
If I'm a Raptors fan, these are the 3 key storylines I'm looking forward to this season. And 3 keys to the season being successful. OG Anunoby becoming a better ball handler and a scorer. Right? Off the dribble, needs to be able to create a little bit more. But I think the real big leap for OG's in his playmaking. He's not a good playmaker. And if he can develop that part, if he improved that in the offseason and it shows up in games, I think that's huge for the Raptors. I think now we start talking about OG in a different light. Second, watching how Scotty Barnes develops. If I'm a Raptors fan, I just want to see why Scotty Barnes was worth the 4th overall pick. And I'm going to see it sooner rather than later because Siakam is out for a month. 3, if they aren't confident in their playoff chances a little bit before the deadline, do they move off of Fred and Siakam? Because I think at this point, if you're not a top 6 seed in the East or top 7, at least you're not in the play-in by a little bit before the trade deadline, why are you still trying to compete? Just tank and trade Siakam and try to get one of these top players in the draft. There's going to be a lot. Hardy coming out. Amani, I think, is eligible for the draft. Chet. I'm not too high on Chet. But Paolo, if the Raptors can land a guy like Paolo or Amani, their franchise changes overnight, instantly. Even Hardy, I think Hardy's a phenomenal player. So those are the 3 storylines that for the Raptors this season that I have. They have depth, but no real star power. Most teams in the Eastern Conference right now have both. So where are the Raptors going to fall? Ceiling-wise, I see them being a 6 seed. But honestly, you telling me Siakam was out for the month, I'm dropping them to a play-in. And I think their floor is a play-in. And if it's not the play-in, it's just outside like the 11th seed.
Yeah.
But they'll still be a competitive team, hard-nosed, defensive-minded. but there's just too many question marks with the Raptors, and the East has gotten tremendously better to the point that we're comparing the East to the Western Conference. That hasn't happened in a very long time.